The committee will come to order. The chairman notes the presence of a quorum, which under Committee Rule 3E is 2 members. The Subcommittee on Energy and Mineral Resources is meeting today to hear testimony on legislative hearing on 3 bills. H.R. 596, introduced by my colleague, Representative Gosar of Arizona, to promote the development of renewable energy on public lands and for other purposes, called the Public Lands Renewable Energy Development Act of 2013. H.R. 1363, introduced by my colleague, Representative Labrador, to promote timely expiration for geothermal resources under existing geothermal leases and for other purposes, the Exploring for Geothermal Energy on Federal Lands Act, and finally H.R. 2004, introduced by my colleague, Representative Simpson, to expand geothermal production and for other purposes, titled the Geothermal Production Expansion Act of 2013. Under Committee Rule 4F, opening statements are limited to the chairman and ranking member of the subcommittee. However, I ask unanimous consent to include any other members' opening statements in the hearing record if submitted to the clerk by close of business today. Hearing no objection, so ordered. I also ask unanimous consent to allow Representative Labrador to participate in today's hearing. Hearing no objection, so ordered. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes. I'd like to thank our witnesses for all being here today. Today, the Natural Resources Subcommittee on Energy and Mineral Resources is meeting for a legislative hearing on 3 bills, H.R. 1363, H.R. 596, H.R. 2004. These 3 bills aim to streamline renewable energy permitting and facilitating increased production of renewable energy on federal lands. Throughout this Congress, the House Natural Resources Committee has emphasized that the best way to ensure American energy security and decrease our nation's dependence on foreign sources of energy is to utilize the resources we have in our own country in an all-of-the-above energy strategy. This includes conventional and renewable sources of energy, as well as new and emerging energy technologies. Unfortunately, while the Obama administration claims to be supportive of all sources of American-made energy, the reality on the ground is a different story. Energy projects continue to be held up by bureaucratic delays and lawsuits for months and sometimes years that delays not only energy production, but also job creation, increased revenue to states and local governments, and economic growth. Further, the administration has limited projects to small areas of federal land and has delayed permit approval for simple exploratory actions that require extremely small amounts of land, yet take many months to approve. Recently obtained documents from the Department of Energy show that the geothermal NEPA process takes 5 to 7 years, longer than both oil and gas projects and solar and wind projects, which take 3 to 5 years and 1.5 years respectively. Additionally, the geothermal NEPA review process requires over 175 document sets for each project. That is not 175 documents, but document sets, which equates to hundreds or even thousands of pages of documents for one project. These requirements are significant barriers and lead to extremely long delays in geothermal production. The Geothermal Energy on Federal Lands Act will streamline the NEPA process for a geothermal test project, which will allow a geothermal project to quickly move forward if resources are found. Permitting this simple project, which disturbs only a small amount of ground, often in areas where activity is already taking place, can take up to 10 months, but is often held up for more than a year. Streamlining this permitting process will allow geothermal resources to be expeditiously discovered and utilized. The Geothermal Production Expansion Act would allow for non-competitive geothermal leasing on federal land adjacent to private lands that are primary sources for geothermal energy. The Public Lands Renewable Energy Development Act creates a competitive leasing program and royalty payments for renewable energy projects on federal lands and shares those royalty payments with county and state governments. Part of the benefits of energy development on federal land is the revenue it brings to small state and local governments, revenue which goes toward education and community services. Unfortunately, areas that are rich in renewable energies where development is occurring do not share the same benefits from energy production on their lands. This is unlike oil and gas projects with an established royalty payment, part of which goes back to local and state governments. The bills we are considering today take small steps toward achieving our goal of making renewable energy projects a reality on federal lands. They will help to expedite renewable energy projects on federal land, increase revenues to state and local governments, create jobs, and help decrease our dependence on foreign sources of energy. Again, I'd like to thank the witnesses for being here, and I look forward to hearing your testimony.